There we go. Okay, well, this is the last show of the year before the Christmas holiday and the New Year, and I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Um, we have a special guest here that I've been wanting to join. Happy that he joined us on the show. I've been wanting to get him on for some time. I thank Tisha for helping to coordinate that. Thank you, Drew, for joining us. And as you know, Drew is the winemaker at ONX, and he also has his own project, which is the Nenow Family Wines. And we're going to talk a little bit about ONX, and then of course we're going to let Drew talk about Nenow. Uh, Jason and I know we have had the pleasure of going to. I don't know if he's been to ONX, but we've been to
Yep.
Nenow, and I love Syrahs. I told Nina or Drew before that I love the Syrah, and he's got an excellent touch with that varietal. And just a quick story: the first time I got introduced to Onyx was I was a rep for the Olson Company, the owners Steve Olson and his brother, right, Drew, and uh, Olson Homes is called, and I knew the VPIT, and she said, "Man, you like wine? You should try Onyx." She goes, "I had the pleasure of having some when I went on a vineyard tour, because of a company event, and she helped coordinate, get me a couple bottles, and I really enjoyed them. And then, of course, we followed up with our friends and took them there year over year for a while, and." Anyways, that was my first introduction to Drew Nenow and his winemaking. And of course, what, 3 years ago, you opened up his Nenow Family Wines, right? So,
Correct. Yeah.
anyways, we're gonna learn more about Drew and what he's up to, and I'm gonna turn it all over to Jason.
Thank you,
Jason?
Mike. Welcome, Drew. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for dialing in and happy holidays on our grand season finale uh, with our special guests, Drew and family. Uh, Drew, before I really jump in, I have to ask the obvious question. Uh, you've been with Onyx for a decade, right?
Mhm.
Did you start winemaking when you were 6 years old?
I
Or,
get that a lot.
or are you just blessed with a youthful appearance?
Well, it's helpful that the harvest is now because we're wrapping things up. But a week ago, maybe would have given me another couple years. But I always say especially right here, it's getting pretty gray in the center there. But if I had a nickel for how many
Yeah,
times I'd show up to an event and someone says, are you even old enough to drink wine, let alone make it? But
it's a
it is
blessing.
somewhat indicative of our family history that we grew up around wine. My dad got bit by the bug in a little bit more midlife, and my aunt and uncle had been making wine up in the Napa Valley in St. Helena and on Spring Mountain. Uh, you know, 30, I mean, they're probably coming up on 30, 40 years of making wine now. So we would make frequent trips up there, and I was always around it. So it was something that I was exposed to from a really young age.
So, is there such a thing about pre-wine for you, or you just been in it since you started walking, huh?
Just around it, yeah. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm the youngest of five kids, and it was always something where my older siblings, like Tracie, was getting into college and thinking about a career. And I feel like in my teenage years, I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and looking around me and saw my dad getting into it, and he had a full-time job working for IBM, and on top of that, on top of all the kids, and with my mom's support, started making wine under a brand called Robert Nenow Wines, and that was really impressionable to me as a young kid, seeing my parents going after something, uh, really making the time to do something that they were passionate about, and that really spoke to me. And it was pretty soon after that that I found that there was actual college degrees that you could get in making wine, and that was it for me. I had that little piece of I played sports in high school, so there was always a part of me that wanted to go and play college football or college volleyball, and that was a pull. But ultimately, the draw to move to San Luis Obispo and go to Cal Poly and study winemaking was just too big of a draw. I had to make on that, and I did.
If you had made a successful career out of football, what position would you have played and what professional team would you be playing for?
Oh man. I was a running back. So, and I was stuck with that. I had decent hands, so I could catch the ball too. So, some sort of like slot receiver or running back was kind of my forte. And if you had asked me, I guess 7, 8 years ago, I would have said I wanted to play for the San Diego Chargers, being a born and bred San Diegan. But that ownership decided to pack up and leave town. I will never give them my support again. So now my answer now is the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, there we go. Okay. Very good. So when did you first start going to your aunt and uncle's property?
Before I can remember, really, they really got going with that project in the 90s. I was born in 1990, so some of my earliest memories are we would spend the holidays up there every once in a while, or take a summer trip up there. The winery became a common thing venue for a lot of our family members, including Tracie and brother-in-law Mike. So we were just always around. They would always throw, one thing I always do remember is they would always throw these open house parties every summer and roll out barrels and pour wine off of them, and all their buyers would come out, and it was always a really good time up at the winery. I just remember rolling barrels around and uh, move all the empty bottles into they have a picking bin that they would put all the empty bottles into, and yeah, and then just being around during harvest time. And if you guys have ever been to a wine region in the fall season, it's a magical time with the grapes on the vine and all the activity around the valley. There's just such an energy to it that really drew me to it. I enjoy doing things outdoors. I like to do varied work. So I always saw that as winemaking. Some days you're a farmer, some days you're a plumber, some days you're a janitor. So I liked the varied nature of it, and it was probably that in those early times, the biggest draw of working in a winery was probably driving a forklift or operating a pump. It was all about the machinery. But it's really blossomed into something so much more than that, quite obviously.
What is the name of your aunt and uncle's winery?
So when they started out, they had a partner by the name of Bob Hitchcock, and the brand that they had started back then was called Barons and Hitchcock. And, and they were at a time in Napa Valley when there's an appetite for boutique. That's really where the boutique made wines, and that's where the phrase a cult winery was really becoming something. And Robert Parker was seeing out those little cult wineries and giving them some attention. And my aunt and uncle and Bob really got along, and he rewarded them with some really great scores that put him on the map back in the day. And since then, they've gone and they are sole ownership of the winery now, and it's called Barron's Family Winery. Still up there. They lost about half their property in the glass fire back in 2020. And they're in the process of rebuilding right now. But most resilient people I know, Lisa Drinkword and Les Barons. So they are they're really working back at it. And I complain. I know I do a lot of work and I have these different jobs. And for Nenow Family Wines, we produce about 1,500 cases a year. And my aunt and uncle now, in their kind of scaling down time, they're producing about the same amount of wine as we are, and they make it look easy. I'm in my thirds, and I probably complain twice as much as they do.
Well, they've had a little more experience too, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, unflackable is what they are.
There
They,
you
you
go.
know, they know what they're doing, and they know how to get a wine harvest done.
What
I have to tell you, we've had a lot of winemakers on here. Nobody's made me feel older than you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry
Uh,
about that.
Not your
don't
fault.
be. Don't be. Uh, so was there a first wine, Drew, that you remember tasting that made you think differently about wine, whether it was family made or not?
Yeah, so kind of like an aha wine, as people
Yeah,
call it.
yeah.
Yeah, my as much as Lisa and Les worked in Napa Valley, obviously worked with a lot of Bordeaux varieties. We're mostly making Cabernet. My uncle loves Rhône wines. He's been procuring them for decades now, and he always had wines from Louis Chave, from both the Southern Rhône and Northern Rhône, and those were the first wines that really spoke to me in terms of this is something more than a beverage. This is something that tells a story of a time and a place, and there's an opportunity to incite a passion and a love of what you do into a physical product, something that you can manifest the greatest things about what we're passionate about into a physical product and tell the story in front of people. And those Chave wines, as I learned more about him and their family winery and the history of it, it really spoke to me in terms of what can we do here in California? What can we do as a family to tell our story, to uh, push the needle in terms of California winemaking and try and get our name out there.
So at what point did you start thinking about making wine yourself?
Uh, I've always wanted to. My dad starting his brand was really impressionable to me. I know he's on this call, so I'll say he's a spectacular winemaker for learning as he went, and he put a lot of passion in the winemaking. I know my dad's not a salesman, and I think that's what was as hard as making is, selling the wine is twice as hard. And I know that in the years that he spent making the wine, he loved the work, he loved doing it, and it eventually became something that he had to give up. And I know that that really hurt. I know that was something that he wanted to keep doing, and for my part, that's where that seed went in of like, I want to continue this someday when I'm ready. But I have to give Tracie and Mike, my sister and brother-in-law, the credit that they were the ones that approached me and my wife Andie way back in 2014 when I was the right age of 23 and pushed the issue in terms of this is something that we want to do. We know this is something you want to do, so let's go do it. So it it took us a couple of years to both wrap our head around it and start to come up with what we thought this could be and what it would look like. But by 2017, we had purchased our first grapes and made our first vintage. So, in the grand scheme of things, back then, 3 years felt like forever. It was like, man, this is finally happening. But
Right, right.
uh, what the fact that I was in my mid 20s at the time, that they had the trust that I could even make it happen and make a drinkable product. I give them a ton of credit for believing in me back then when maybe I didn't. And just like my dad had done, we figured it out as we went and found our style and our brand. And we just opened a brand new tasting room in downtown Paso this summer. And Tracie and I worked together pretty closely in terms of designing and building that tasting room. And uh, compared to other sites where we had open tasting rooms, it was the first time where it really felt like we know who we are. We know what the look and feel of this place is, and we know how we want to welcome people. There's a lot of people are so and so family wines, this and that, but the family part of that name is really at the heart of what we do. We want everybody that comes into the winery to feel like family. We want our club is called the Family Club because we want our club members to feel like family. Just as we did when we sat down with our family. We had these massive family gatherings growing up, 50, 60 people. And we wanted the tasting room to really feel like that, a coming together of family to enjoy the fruits of our labor.
So,
So just to be clear, though, sorry, Jason,
all right, you're good.
this is prior. you're making family wine prior to the Onyx engagement. Is that correct or
Did you
not?
say the Onyx?
Yeah.
No, it was it was about the time that I was at another job, working as essentially a cellar rat, before I saw a job posting for Onyx in 2015 that that I took. It was just an internship. It wasn't even promised full time, and I decided to leave the job I was at to take a chance with Onyx, and it led to a full-time opportunity. It wasn't until 2 years into working at Onyx that we started Nenow Family Wines.
Right. Good, but just to go back to the cellar rat, if you don't mind sharing, where was that at?
I was working out at the east side at a winery called Villa San Juliet.
Okay.
It was brand new built in. I started working for them in 2013. And there was really only three of us working in the winery. There was a enologist, there was a winemaker, and there was me. And what that meant was pretty much all of the cellar work fell on me. So it was a perfect opportunity where I got to do everything and anything. I do believe that I got my cellar chops working at VSJ and started to learn how I like to do cellar work and started to get that sense of I want to do all the right things. I want to do all the sanitation standards. I want to do everything to an A+ level because I truly believe that that is one of the hallmarks of making good wine is all those small details.
Right.
Was VSJ your first job in the wine industry?
No, professionally, my first job was outside of being seller, child labor. Prior to that, was working for Harry Turley at Turley Wine Cellars.
Oh,
So I
nice.
worked in 2011 and 2012 for Larry. In 2011, I kind of bounced between the St. Helena or Calistoga winery and the Paso winery. At the time, Aaron Jordan, the now owner and winemaker at Fela Wines, was still the winemaker at Turley. So I got to learn a lot from him. The current winemaker, Tegan, was around a lot. Still in contact with Tegan. He's been a wealth of knowledge to me. And then the winemaker down here, Carl Wicca, if I had to put a thumb on who was the most influential mentor that I've had since getting into the world of professional winemaking, it's Carl. He's always been there. We get coffee and beers regularly, and he's just always somebody that I can bounce things off of.
So you're working at VSJ when you find out about the opening at Onyx, and what was that role at Onyx at the time?
It was just a harvest internship. It wasn't promised to be full time anything after harvest, just one of those seasonal gigs. And a winemaker at the time had said, the possibility of coming on full time. And that ended up being realized, but it was initially we'll need you 3 days in the cellar. The other 2 days, we want you to do vineyard tours. And that was the case for a lot of jobs that I did. I worked in tasting rooms throughout college and I'm really comfortable being behind the bar. So I spent 3 days a week doing winemaking and then the other 2 days a week doing vineyard tours out at the Onyx estate. And it worked because my wife works in healthcare. She's a dietitian, and at the time she was working a Tuesday through Saturday schedule. So I linked up with that too and did production work Tuesday, Wednesday,
Nice.
Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, and then Andie and I had Sundays and Mondays together.
Yeah.
So we hear about the term of the title cellar rat quite a bit on here. Can you just paint the picture of what's day in the life of a cellar rat look like? What kind of tasks are you doing?
For anybody that's seen, I remember when I was a cellar rat, I always thought that Jim Rome's Dirty Jobs show. I was like, someone's got to tell them about these cellar workers, and because it'd be perfect for that show. I mean, it's essentially sanitation, running a pump, running a forklift, anything that needs to happen in the cellar. It's everything that needs to happen from a hands-on basis with the winemaking, or anything the winemaker doesn't want to do. He's gonna make the cellar rat do. which is
Fair
great.
enough.
Honestly, it doesn't pay well even to this day. Got to have your eyes set on a goal of making it to a certain point and work through those tough years of being a cellar rat because it's hard financially to make it through. I mean, when I was kind of in between jobs and Andie and I were getting ready to married, I lived out of my car for uh, probably about 4 or 5 months. It wasn't too bad. I had a really sweet setup in the back of my truck. But you make it work however you need to. And if you really want a life in winemaking, those first years of getting by through cellar work, you're just absorbing everything. You're involved in everything. You're getting hands-on, and that's the groundwork uh, that you lay in order to determine your style and what you would do if you were the one making the decisions. Because the phrase "there's 100 different ways to skin a cat" or whatever your phrase of choice is, that's very much winemaking along the ride when it comes to what you're doing in the vineyard, to your decision on when you're going to pick, your decisions in the winery during harvest, and thereafter there's you know thousands, if not tens of thousands, of decisions along the way that inform the style. And it's only through doing the work and saying, "Ooh, I think I would do it this way." Personally, and then seeing the results of those decisions that you're making that really inform your style.
I want to come back to the style piece because it's especially interesting when you've got two different labels you've got to determine a style for. But first, tell us about that path once you started Onyx to where you are with Onyx now. What was that journey like?
For Onyx, when I came in, it had a pretty set identity. We're a state-based winery. We grow 18 different grape varieties at our estate in Templeton, and we focused on doing eclectic blends. We had a few varietal wines here and there, but our mainstay was that we weren't afraid to experiment and we weren't afraid to put varieties together that maybe aren't always uh, blended together. And that was really influential to me when I was working at a tasting room in Edna Valley in college. There's winemaker Christian who I would tap regularly to be like, what, like, if you were to go back and do it all again, what would you do? And his main piece of advice was work somewhere where you get to work with as many varieties as possible. Don't go work somewhere where they make Pinot and Chard and that's it. Open yourself up to different opportunities, get familiar with as many different grapes as you can. And that's one of the greatest things about working at Onyx the past 10 years is the number of things that I've been exposed. We do custom crush here for 10 other wine brands too. So that was just further exposure to both varieties and style. And like I said before, it's just about seeing those in action and deciding. It's more of, I would say, a gut feeling and tasting other wines from around the world and not tasting too much of your own wine. Really important, and like a compass, just kind of guides you naturally to where you want to be stylistically. And then from there, it's still a moving target. I don't think anybody gets to a certain point and says, I know exactly where my style is. Depending on your taste preferences, depending on climate, you constantly got to be willing and able to adjust your thinking and constantly be fine tuning what quote unquote your style is.
Yeah, I mean, and more broadly, an advantage of Paso itself is all the different varietals that perform in the region, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so when you're making wine for two different labels, I assume you don't want them to be the same wines, right? So how do you determine what the style approach will be to make them unique?
Well, stylistically, as far as handling the wines, they're not vastly different. I would just say the inputs are vastly different. So, Onyx being in a state-based winery where we grow all these different grape varieties, there's no necessarily core, like we're a Rhône producer or a Bordeaux producer or anything like that. One guide to a location, and I have the ability to paint with a lot of different colors with Onyx. So that drives the style when it comes to our winemaking here. And with Nenow, it's kind of the opposite, where we are more honed in on our own varieties, but we work with, on any given year, we're working with 10 to 15 different vineyards, from Santa Barbara to mainly here in Paso. So less varieties, but a lot more variety in terms of the locale, the terroirs, the microclimates in which we're pulling grapes from. So just naturally, the wines are wildly different for that fact alone. Um, but also, Tracie and Mike and Andy, we all talk about the direction, we talk about the wines, we taste wines. But at the end of the day, they've given me creative license to really take the wines exactly where I want to. And at Onyx, I have a team. I have a team that I trust implicitly. And they really help me inform where we're going, and we do it together as a team. And I have an employee that does work at both brands. He really started working with me at Nenow first. His name is Sam. If you've been to our tasting room, you may have met him back in the day. But Sam is, I couldn't do the Nenow wines without Sam either. And ever since, he's been helping me since the 2022 vintage. And we just released a bunch of the 23s, and he was quick to remind me that he gets to take credit for the 23 vintage because he did do a lot of the legwork that year
That's
because
a that's a
it
good
was
vintage to take
wild.
credit for too.
Yeah. He let me
Smart.
know the other day that whenever he's working in the tasting room, he without pause takes complete credit for the 23 harvest, and I'll give it to him. He's a nice enough guy.
Yeah, smart. He might have been Mike. I don't know if you remember. He might have been who helped us when we were there. Uh,
I don't remember. I
yeah,
don't.
that's pulling some memory strings.
I
It
remember being in Nenow a few years ago when we were there for the before party. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I think you would remember Sam. There's no forgetting Sam.
I would say he made an impression. He was really good. He was really the person that helped us was really good. We're quite impressed with him.
Must have
Um,
been. He's the best.
yeah. Um, but I understand you prefer not to use like new oak often. So there is, aside from what, how the vineyard speaks through the fruit, which is what I'm kind of hearing to some degree,
Mhm.
um, there are probably other inputs that or levers that you're pulling that will have an influence on what your style is. And I assume that is one of them.
Yeah, resource wise, I really have the ability to get me in all oak that I could possibly want here at Onyx, and I certainly do. And with Nino, I think it's more of a what needs it aspect when going through the varieties. I don't like to oak wherever I am. I don't like to oak white wines. As far as new oak goes, I love to ferment and age white wines in oak, but I much prefer it to be neutral barrels. I think there's just too much innate nuance when it comes to white wines to be putting new oak on it. I always get the sense that texturally, there because I think what a lot of people don't realize is acid is a texture. And when it comes to white wines, I focus a lot on what the acid is bringing to the texture. And when you introduce a new oak barrel that is introducing its own oak tannin and in part onto the textures, I feel like it gets in the way a little bit. And also aromatically, I think one of the greatest things about white wines is the plethora of tropical notes, of herbal notes, floral notes that you
More.
can have together in one glass. And New Oak really does get in the way of that. So I feel that it mostly uh, singularizes the white wine, that it makes it one dimensional when you put too much New Oak on it. Grenache is something that I believe in also putting new or putting neutral oak on for the same reason. I think all of its best attributes are by new oak. Morvet is something that I really like to put once used barrels on. That's kind of been the sweet spot for me. Because again, just like the whites, texturally, the mid palate of Morvet is its utility. That's what makes it so useful in blends. So it gets harder to blend with introducing other textures to it. And Syrah is something that I can put as much new oak on it as I want. And it's something that we tend to at Nenow put the new oak on pretty frequently.
So is this, I don't know, you're not going to be able to see this. Maybe you can. Is this
Hmm.
100%?
That's the 20 vintage.
It's 20, yeah.
Yeah, that's 100% more vet. I believe in 2020 that was from, does it say Alta Colina on the label?
It does.
Yeah, that's Alta Colina Morved, which I've been working with Alta Colina for pretty much every year that we've been in production. And that one, yeah, that one right there would have no new oak on it. That would be all neutrals. And if possible, large format barrels if I have them.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So the approach to barrels as it relates to red is just based off the particular grape and how it will influence and what you want to showcase of that grape then, sounds like.
Yeah, and showcasing the sites too, the places, the
Yeah.
vineyards that we're working with. We're got the first couple of years that we made wine, was dealt the hard truth that if people don't know you, if you haven't made wine before, which at that point I was still an assistant winemaker at ONX when we started Nenow Family Wines. So I didn't have a physical bottle of say, I made all the decisions on this. This is my bottle of wine that I produced. And one thing I figured out pretty quickly is that grape growers are pretty hesitant to sell you grapes if you haven't made wine before, which is totally understandable. And you're gonna be using their name out there, and if you make a bad bottle of wine from their grapes, then someone might assume it's the vineyard. So I understood. But luckily, I had a few vintners that were more than willing to give us a chance. And then we had some winemakers, namely Nick Elliott at Nicora Wines, which is, where we make our wines now. He's, gave us a space there to make the Nenow wines. And Nick was one of those people early on, I believe in you. And I have some of these acreage contracts that I'm willing to be a couple boxes from. And that's how we got started. And then I had that physical bottle to take to someone and say, see, I won't mess it up. I promise. Give me a
Right, right.
chance.
Yeah.
So I
And
have
that's
to
really
insert.
developed. I'm constantly humbled every year, the last 5, 6 years, at the people that are willing to sell us their grapes. I mean, we're working with, and at this point, we've worked with every epic property there is: York Mountain,
Right.
Catapult, Paderewski. Our Hawks Hill Ranch have been selling us grapes, and that's way up there in terms of quality. We've been working with the guys at Oak and Vine in Templeton. I know I'm forgetting people. That's the
I mean,
hardest
still though,
part.
that's one of the great testaments to how the industry respects you when you're getting access to those kind of vineyards.
And to me, it's that trust. It's
Yeah.
because I knew what it was like when I didn't have something to show them, and it really resonated to me how much these growers care about the product that they put out there, and they don't want to do anything to put it in jeopardy. So essentially, every time a grower agrees to sell us grapes, there's a level of trust there that we're going to do right by the work that they put in that whole year. I don't take that lightly in the least. It's really what drives me in terms of the hardest of days where like, oh man, I'm so tired. I don't want to do this pump over right now, or I don't want to do, it needs to be pressed right now. It's gonna be too extracted if I wait a couple days. And it's like, no, these people, us, we're gonna do right by them, and we're gonna do the hard work because they did the hard work.
So when you're
Hey,
first getting
hey,
access,
Jason, I think uh, Drew's dad wanted to make a point.
oh,
I
go
did.
ahead,
Yeah,
by all
thank you.
means.
One thing Drew won't tell you is what a wonderful palate he has for making wine.
Oh,
I watched him put blends together and go, how did you think of that? That's really good. One of my favorite wines he does is the Cuvée Andie, which is a wonderful blend. And I just wanted to contribute that to it. But he's a good winemaker.
Oh,
yeah, no doubt. And thank you for that. I think wine or blending is part of that magic of making wine, right?
Right.
Um, and especially in a region like this where you've got access to so many different types of varieties, to be able to have that skill set feels essential.
I believe that the blending is the magic sauce in Paso. It separates the region from many others. I really do.
Is
So
there
many. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, was there a particular? I know you um, had mentioned your time at what was it, Turley with Carl, um, which I don't really think when I think of Turley, I don't think much about blending. But
Yeah,
was
right.
there a mentor somewhere along the way that really helped you kind of refine the blending process or your approach?
I think that that goes back to the stylistic direction of being exposed to blending through. Obviously, at ONX, I haven't worked a ton of places, obviously, but I can't imagine that blending is as painstaking and as involved of a process as it is here at ONX because of the number of varieties that we work with and the number of blends that we do. I mean, it can be a multi-week long process of tasting wine. And just like that, just like Christian told me all the way back when I was in college, work somewhere where you get to work with as many varieties as possible. It's just been that opportunity to see and work directly from grape to bottle these different varieties and get a sense of how they mesh together and pulling apart the different aspects of what happens aromatically when you start to blend. What happens texture? What happens acid wise, flavor wise, and just starting to get a sense of the push and pull and uh, what influences a wine when you add 5-10% of something. Because that's something that I think was astound to this day astounds me is you can have a wine and you can play around with 5% of something in it and say, wow, that makes way more than 5% of a difference. And uh, I know along the way, I have to give Jeff credit in terms of Jeff Streck, a colleague here at Onyx, that he's the one that hired me. He's the one that he had been working at Onyx already for a couple of years and really got me up to speed on what's going on around here. And I think that gave me the platform, that gave me the foundation in order to break out from there on how I blend.
So
Well,
you go back and you all the varietals you worked with, you just kind of to make some musical analogy, you have your primary, your dominant grape in the bottle or what you're going to use, and then you go like, I need more cowbell or you know.
So
I
like
mean,
the
you just go
blending
like, I got to
process.
add a little something to it that, and then you go through this catalog in your mind of the
Yeah.
flavors and the structure of that particular grape, and that's how you make a decision, huh?
Yeah, and in an ideal scenario, you start with a base. So talking Nenow, with our 11s blend, which is kind of our flagship wine. A bit of a snapshot of our portfolio because so many of the other wines are typically varietally focused or even vineyard designated. And the 11s is a wine where we pull from most of the vineyards that we work with and put together a Grenache Syrah, and the third variety can kind of change depending on vintage. But it's something where it's an introduction to what we're doing, where you can branch out into maybe more specifically focused wines. And when it comes to blending that wine, obviously I start with Grenache. That's the bedrock of that wine. And we'll taste through all the different Grenache lots and figure out the compatibility of the different districts that we work with in Paso. So typically in Adelaida district, that's where we get a lot of our fruit density, a lot of the aromatics that we're looking for is there. But it's not a overly textured subset of our Paso AVA. Things ripen a little bit quicker around there, so your development of your skins and seeds lag a little bit compared to other places. But because of the warmth of the area, the development of the aromatics and the flavors are just turned up to 12. So that's where I tend to try and get the boom of the wine, as it were, or the base of the wine. And then Willow Creek District, because of the soils and what they are, and it's kind of Goldilocks zone between Templeton Gap and Adelaida, that's where a lot of the acid and textures come from. And that's where very much the core of the wine is coming from. And then moving even farther south into Templeton Gap, we have some vineyards that we work with where I a lot of the nuance and the complexity comes from because of the longer growing season, the cooler weather. I think those wines tend not to be as expressive, but they're so nuanced and more complex. So that's where we can really start to weave in uh, that aspect of creating a complete wine. So I'd start with the Grenaches from those three different sub-districts, Paso Robles. Depending on vintage, if it's a hot vintage, I may, try and lean into Templeton Gap a little bit more to ensure that we're not all base. And conversely, when it's a really cool year, I'll probably a little bit more on the Adelaida district to ensure that we have that volume, that intensity that we're looking for.
Very interesting.
That is
Yeah.
fascinating. And one thing I've often wondered about the blending process is, I love that perspective, how you shared the different AVAs, or different vineyards. But I wonder also, I could get conceptually when you're blending how it tastes right then. But going back to
Mhm.
Christian's advice, learning the different varieties, does that include understanding how the wine will age in the bottle, the specific varieties when you're blending too? Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
And
Yeah.
yeah, because if there's one side that I'm very much still learning on, it would be that because I'm uh, in the grand scheme of things, a young winemaker. I have 12, 13, 14 harvests under my belt. In the grand scheme of things, not a lot.
Yeah, and you can
So
only
wines.
know that to go back historically and see what you did and how it kind of manifested over the years, huh?
Exactly. And then as like we talked about stylistic manifestation and stylistic change throughout time and how those changes have I think when it comes to Nenow, uh, it's big chunks in terms of like shifts of okay, we did this, now I want to be there. And then I think you kind of fine tune. And when it comes to history, 2017 was, the first year that we made wine. It was also the first year that California was reprieved from the horrible drought of the 2010s that
Right.
lasted from 2012 all the way through 2016. It was right? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 5 consecutive growing seasons of drought. And the winemaking within that drought period uh, was one thing. And then in 2017, all of a sudden, parts of West Side Paso got 55, 60 inches of rain. And we were just suddenly plucked out of this drought. And the wines that year, the vines responded. It was a big crop year, a bumper year, as they say it. And with those larger years, it was also, even despite all the rain, it was an immensely hot summer. So we had this big crop with a lot of heat potential. And with that, you don't get a ton of phenolic development in the skins and seeds. Well, that coincided with me making one for the first time where I was scared shitless of making a mistake, of doing something wrong. So I was very cautious in the winemaking. And to this day, I go back and I taste wines from 2017 and I am like, what a wuss. I can't like, you should have extracted more, you should have hung longer or anything like that. And that was kind of that shift. But again, in retrospect, from the vintage, that might have been the right way to play the vintage. But that's just that process of, like you said, knowing how a wine ages. It informed me tasting back to those 2017s. Hey, you can be more aggressive in certain areas. You need to find those areas where you can really go for extraction. You can really pull those textures that you need to create wines that are full, that are finished, that are complete wines.
So now that the 25 harvest is behind us, what what other vintage would you compare 25 to?
I was just talking to somebody about that today. I think it's a mixture of 2018 and 2011.
Oh,
2011 was in some of these things. I'll talk about 25. 25, relatively dry winter. We didn't get a ton of rain. It was not a huge crop. We started about on time, but we had a really cold, cool, wet spring. And then that was followed up by an extremely mild summer. I think we only had 6 days above 100 degrees this year, which compared to 2022, which was our last exceedingly hot year, we had 23 days above 100 degrees here in Paso. So that kind of puts in that it went into the fall. The fall stayed very mild, not very warm. So it ended up being a really long growing season with a marginally sized crop. So 2011, really wet winter, and there was a lot of frost events in the spring, but then the summer was relatively mild until September. But a lot felt like 2000 was this wet, cold vintage because it started raining in October and never stopped. So from a harvest standpoint, the month August to November, 2011 and 2025, very similar. 2018 was very similar in the summer months that it was extremely mild. The wines had tons of hang time. The crop was much bigger in 18, but the wines were really tight, really tannic, uh, age-worthy wines with high acid. So they're till 2025 wasn't exactly like either of those years. But if you pick out little aspects of those two vintages, you can kind of piece together what 2025 was, which is really atypical here. That's so I think the only reason that the answer is so prolonged is because there's never really been a year like 2025. It was super unique. I think the wines are going to speak to that. And it's too early to tell in terms of, getting deep into what the resulting wines are, but I'm excited about them.
Good.
Your
Good.
explanation is amazing because I couldn't help but think it reminds me. I don't remember what happened in 2011, but it's like watching a golfer get interviewed and they go, "What happened there on 15?" He goes, "Well, basically I hit a 6 iron and came up a little short. And then I hit a lofted wedge and and they explain and they played that whole like that was 2 days ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
they remember. Anyways,
Mike,
very
They
good.
do They do really stick with you. One, I'm a aggressive note taker. It's something that I've always been in terms of jotting. I remember things best when I write them down. So I take every opportunity to write down observations and because it helps me later. But also when you spend 3 months out of the year working between 60 to 80 hours a week and you're breathing and breathing, drinking, and eating harvest for extended amount of time, it really sticks with you. It's impressionable every single year. Every single year is different. So they're unique. They don't really blend together because even year can be different. And there's lessons to be learned. So not only are your experiences during the year experiences, but they're tied to things that are informing you, like, oh, I want to do this differently in the future. So they're as far as brain capacity and synapses and the way that the brain fires, I just think that it sinks in a little bit deeper because it's tied to so many different things, connected to so many different things in terms of your thought process.
Right.
Mike, hilarious. I was thinking the exact same analogy about golf when you asked that
I
question.
know, right?
Yeah.
The guy,
That's funny.
the golfer can tell you hole by hole what
Yep.
he every club he played, what he pulled
Yep.
out of the bag. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Uh, just a quick time check. We got a few minutes left. I want to just ask a couple more quick questions, let you talk a little bit about your clubs, and then time permitting, open it up to questions. So I'll go quick here.
Yeah.
Curious, you may have alluded to this earlier, but what is the most challenging part of making wine?
Oh, I got into it because I was very passionate about what I wanted. And that was when I was a teenager. And, you can kind of sit in whatever you're working on and devote yourself to it fully. Um, but as you grow up and you start a family and you've got wife and kids to think about. I think the hardest part is balancing the home life balance, the work life balance in terms of ensuring because it's really important to be a present dad to girls and be a supportive uh, husband to my wife And then I've got these responsibilities at work. So it's just about managing those things. Honestly, every other piece of winemaking, give it to me any day of the week, any day of the year, and I will do it. I don't get sick of it. I never do. But it's just that push and pull of other things in life that become important to you. And so much of my professional career has been focused on learning as much as I can, working as hard as I can, and then other things become more important. So my wife's the best at in terms of checking me when, hey, you're focusing too much in that arena. You know, the girls really need you right now. And that grounds me. That brings me back to center. And it also gives me the energy that I need to get back in the saddle and get back into the winery and not turn into the guy from oh my gosh, what's that Kubrick film? The horror one. Someone help me. Where
Clockwork
he's trapped
Orange.
at the hotel. Huh?
Which one?
The
Where's
Stanley Kubrick film, The Shining.
Oh, The
oh
Shining.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh
All work
yeah
and no
oh
play. You know, I
yeah.
can't get in that or else I'll end up crazy like Jack Nicholson.
Right.
And the selling part of it, which we hear often, is one of the more challenging. How you feel about that part of it?
Also a daunting task. I was loving the winemaking in the first few years that I still do, obviously, but that was my sole focus the first couple of years as we were getting started. And then as we were getting ready to launch, that creeping feeling of, oh, now we have to sell it. And
Yeah.
that nagging feeling of what if nobody buys it? And what if they don't like it?
I,
Um, but over time, like I said, Tracie and I working on this tasting room and figuring out that we have made a lot of strides in terms of who we are and what our vibe is. Whenever I walk into the tasting room to sell Nenow wines, it's different because it's ours. It's something that we've built together. It's something that we've really started from ground zero, and it's so easy to talk to it. Honestly, it's a joy to be in the tasting room and connect with and we have the best customers. I don't know if I can express that enough that we have customers that care deeply about the small details. So when I come in and I start to nerd out on how the harvest went or about a certain blend and why we put it together the way we did and that they're engaged with it, they're not just there to drink. That fills my cup too. So it's not that's not working at all when I get to go into the tasting room and pour for people and talk about what we do.
yeah.
Drew, really quick, I want to tell you the Tinkers are on here and they're drinking a 2017 11s tonight. I thought you might.
17. How's it? Can you guys mind mentioning how it's doing? I don't
Joe,
want to put you
Laura,
guys on the spot.
they're there.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to cross my hands over to open up. I've asked the question again. I apologize.
How's your
I wanted to
17
know how
drinking?
how's the 2017 11s drinking?
You know what? I may be tasting the age on it. It's not bad. And from me, that's praise. So
Thanks.
I'm definitely tasting. I am tasting a little bit of age on it though right now. So
Yeah, I'd imagine the color's bricking a bit and getting that orange hue to it, and
just a little
that
bit,
one's
yeah.
it's
But
pretty
I
much
would.
entirely Grenache from La Vista Vineyard up in the Adelaida district, which again in a Adelaida district, it was in its youth when it was young. It was something that you did not need to lay down. It was ready right away, and I think that what informed us was seven. If you have 17s in your cellar, drink them. 17s are ready to go.
That's an interesting point because you ask the winemaker, like, well, why are you gonna well, you can hold on this to 2030, but then they'll really tell you behind the scenes, like, I would drink it young. I like my wine young. When that winemaker tells you I like the wine young, that's a signal. Not everything needs to be aged. So if you tell your client, did we lose him? I think we did.
Yeah. It felt like the Wi-Fi was getting a little bit choppy, but I'm sure he'll be right back.
He'll be back. So, anyways,
Where is?
drinking wines young is, they'll tell you that they like them young. If they do, that's where you buy them. Here he's coming back.
Um, and we're kind of at time, so I want to give Drew a chance to talk about
No.
clubs, unless
Well,
Tracie,
if he
you want
doesn't
to
come
take the
back,
baton.
Tracy's capable of going ahead and tell us something about your club and tasting room experience. Why don't you do that, Tracy?
I know I'm not the maker, but I'm the older sister of the maker, and I
Right.
always my sisters and I take credit for Drew being the incredible person that he is. He's the youngest of all of us, and so we like to think that we had some sort of impact on him. But he's back. Drew, we were just going to chat briefly about just the tasting room environment, which a few people have commented that they've been to the new spot and really enjoyed it. So thank you, Williams, Mike and Delia, for coming and experiencing that. Like Drew said, this was really just something that was exciting for us to build pretty much from the ground up with our own style and just a space where we hoped people would come and feel comfortable, feel like they're at home. We have shelves with photos of our family and just different pieces of, Drew has a stack of magazines that have impacted his career and that he loves. And there's just little touches. We have the first bottle of wine that we opened after celebrating starting the brand, sitting on the shelf. And so it's just a really special place. And family is at the core of what we do. So, Drew, do you want to chat a little bit about the family club and kind of what that looks like?
Yeah, my wife is our club manager, so she's the one that communicates most directly with all of our club members. But from the beginning, it's always, like Tracie said, been about making people feel like family and making them feel a part of what we are, and like they're a part of the journey along the way. And we don't make a lot of wine. I mean, just what was it, 2 years ago, we had to close down our tasting room for 2 months because we were sold out. And we've been happy. It's because we've always prioritized those club members. We always want to make sure we have wine for them. And some of the wines that we make are, 2 barrels at a time, 50 cases. And we want to make sure that our club members have first access to those small production wines. And also that bringing them in on that familial feeling that we really try to run through the entire business, that you walk in and you feel like you're a part of the family. We do 2 shipments a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. We have 3 bottles, 6 bottle, and a case club option. There's varied benefits based off of which tier that you're in, but you're always prioritized in terms of new small lot production wines that we're working on. And like I said before, the ability to work with some of the vineyards that we're getting access to now has just opened up our ability to do more vineyard, really exciting vineyard designate wines. Like I'll plug a bottling that we just did back in August where we did 100% Grenache bottling from Paderewski Vineyard. And I'm really excited. That's going to go to club members first. And I'm really excited to share that with everybody. But I jumped on. It sounded like Tracie was taking all the credit. Um,
For you,
Once
for
again.
for what an amazing winemaker you've become. She
Oh,
she
okay. Well, there's a silver lining there.
I
she
was
with your
taking zero
parents.
credit for the winemaking, zero. I was just taking credit for like maybe having some sort of like impression on who you are, which is pretty incredible. So that's
Yeah,
all.
Tracie used to babysit us. And what was really impactful to me, or maybe my anxiety, was that punishing us was singing Celine Dion at the top of her lungs, in a performance style.
Oh,
And yeah, that was
Tracie,
very
can we get a
impactful on me
sample,
in my
Tracie?
life.
Yeah, we got time.
No, it was a punishment, you guys. It wasn't good.
Oh.
It was like, oh, you guys are being bad. Listen to my singing.
No,
I
but
won't I won't torture you
in
at this point in the call with that.
That's creative
no, but
punishment.
there's credence to what Tracie is saying, that again, it was the courage and the trust that really got this thing going. There would be no Nenow Family Wines if it wasn't for the Roseberries. It was really their idea, and they really gave me something to uh, perform my passion. So I'm eternally grateful for them, and they're a constant source of inspiration when it comes to what we're doing. As are my
Well,
parents who are on the call. My dad almost made me cry on the call, so thanks, Pops. Those are really kind words, and that meant a lot to me.
well, there's
So,
no
so
mistaking the reason for the name Nenow family because it's clearly you guys are a close family, and that's really nice to see.
I
I'm
have to
sorry, Mike.
say, we've had 40, you're probably the 46th winemaker we've had on here. And here it is, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and this is the first time we've had the family on, which makes it kind of special. So
Yeah.
I applaud your folks for participating, and your sister and Tracie. You've been great communicating with me. It's been great. So what we
Thank
need to
you.
do now is open it up to questions from our people out here. Who's got a question? Delia, go ahead.
Yeah, we just want to say that not only we love the wine, oh my God, this is a fantastic wine, but we really enjoyed this conversation, and we want to thank you, Drew, for being available to talk to us and being so genuine.
Yeah, one of the most genuine winemakers who, since we've been part of the group and have listened to, I really enjoyed that. Thank
Very
you.
down to earth.
And as Mike was saying, we have a lot of wine and we typically lay stuff down at least 5+ years. And we opened this 2023 Grenache tonight that we just purchased in October. Oh my God, it is so freaking good that I mean, we'll be coming through in March again. We're gonna have to figure out a way to get some more of this because it's phenomenal. Yeah. I'm sad I
Thank
couldn't.
you so
I
much.
would like to know how it lays down for a little bit, but it is so freaking good right now.
And I love the fact that, your sister is part of your business and your parents are here supporting you. So that just fills my heart with joy.
We
Oh,
haven't been to
it's
ONX yet,
really
so
my
we'll have
heart.
to better try next time too.
Yeah.
You're
Thank
you're
you.
you're a lovely family. So, and I really mean that. And who else has a question? Anybody else? Did I see anything in the thread here? Usually, come tasting.
No questions standing in the
Mike,
way.
I always have some little thing I'm curious about.
Okay, go ahead, Matt.
So I mean, of course, the folks, especially in this group, are pretty knowledgeable about the type of wines that do best in this area. So, we're GSM fanatics. There's some nice Bordeaux options. There's some good Zin, things like that. What I'm always curious about, not that we necessarily need more options, but are there any particular varieties that you would imagine we'll see more of that maybe aren't very prominent or maybe aren't here yet, based on kind of our, you know, uh, climate or, even terroir at the specific, places where folks are planting. Any particular thing that you haven't really seen too much of yet that you think would do well in this area?
It's a great question. One, I'll say an obvious answer to me because I love it so much, but I can't find enough of it is Cinsault. It's such a utility grape in terms of it can use it in blends. For those of you who've had the wines before, we do a semi-carbonic like chillable red called Last of Five. That's a really nice kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's just like kind of a change of pace when it comes to enjoying wine. It's like this exists in this world between white and red. Um, and I wish there was more so that I could make more. But as far as like eclectic things, there's a grape in that kind of same range called Pulsard that I wish there was more of around here. It also occupies that space between white and red, and just more white variety. I would love to see more Claret Blanche, more Marsanne, even more Roussanne. We made our first Roussanne this year, and I couldn't believe how hard it was to actually find something like that. So, uh, I think that you go to any vineyard and you're going to find the mainstays, but I hope that people even in small quantities, really push the bounds in terms of what sort of oddball varieties, as it were, we're planting and playing with, because it's only going to deepen the complexity and the capability of what we can do here in Paso.
How did you
Yeah, that's
approach
why
the
I've been
barrel
a
on the
fan.
Rasan? Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Oh yeah, good question. No, 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 please. That's a good question.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
How did you approach the barrel on the Rasan?
The barrels?
Yeah,
Same as the other whites, neutral
minimal.
whites, fermented. Another thing that I like to do, because it doesn't necessarily mess with the textures as we were talking about as it relates to the acid, but I prefer to do surly with batonnage, where uh, I mix up the barrels and suspend the lees, the sediment of the bottom of the bottom of the barrel up into the wine frequently. You know, during harvest and during fermentation, we're stirring them every other day. And then as the wines are topped up and aging, we'll start stirring once a week or maybe once every other week. And that creates a more roundness to the wine while still maintaining the acid as well. So it kind of opens it up to even more complexity.
Hmm.
When's that
Hey,
one available? Did you sell out of it already?
No, we're gonna bottle it sometime this year.
Nice, nice.
the wall switch has a question. What turns you off of? That's a joke.
I got
The,
you.
the wall switch.
I got
Got
it,
it.
Mike. I
Okay.
thought it was
The
funny
wall
if
switch,
nobody
what
else
turns
did.
you off?
Sorry.
Good
Anyway,
one.
that was a cheap one. I'm sorry. I couldn't pass that
Good
one
one,
off.
Mike.
Anyways, anybody else have a question?
I have a question. We discovered Paso basically in 2007 when we dropped our son Chase McBride off at Cal Poly, and it's kind of fun to see Drew, somebody about his age, who is making an impact in Paso, and we were so shocked and wonderfully surprised at the wonderful wines in the Paso region, and we drove Chase down, and then we came home with a car full of wine, wondering what are we going to do with all this. But it's very fun to see this youth. I mean, there's so many great winemakers in Paso Robles, but it's very exciting to see someone about our son's age coming in and making an impact in the region. And it's very fun as parents to see your parents. They're supporting you, that family affair. So anyway, we really enjoyed it. We're going to be down there in February, Shelley and I, and we really look forward to coming and visiting Nenow Wines.
Thank you so much. Yeah, especially in these difficult times for our industry, to about people making the effort to come into town and visit the wineries and head back with a car full of wine. It's very encouraging in a time when it's tough to be encouraged. So I thank you so much for your support of our region. We're doing the best we can, and I'm thankful that I just had the people around me growing up that led me to this direction, because I can't imagine doing anything else, honestly.
Just a quick question. How many cases are you making under the Nenow label right now?
Right now, we're producing about 1,500 cases a year, so
Okay.
it's about 25 to 30 tons of grapes a year. And I mean, that's really escalated quickly. Our first year, we made about 550 cases of wine, and that was our size all the way through 2021. We were kind of right around that. And it wasn't until 2022 we took a huge leap and basically tripled our production amount. And that was with the 20 vintage. We started releasing those wines last year. And just as we had the anxiety about the first year of will people buy it, now we have all this more wine, and obviously that we just started releasing the 2023s this fall. So our customers have stayed with us and they kept supporting. So we're still moving through the vintages.
And Onyx, how many cases are they producing a year?
We're doing about 6,000 a year.
Okay.
And that includes, Onyx is kind of split up into three different tiers. We have a wholesale tier that we call Indie, that we try to distribute, very approachable price points. We have the Onyx core wines, And then we have a luxury arm that includes a few single varietal wines. And then also our Kyler Canyon brand has been launching, which is from new estate property that we have in the Willow Creek district, where they're estate made Rhône wines from that specific property on Kyler Canyon Road.
Right.
And so it's about 6,000 cases between all of those.
Well,
Does anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Jason.
yeah, I
Oh,
just want to.
Pops has a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Oh, no.
It isn't so much a question as I don't know if you caught the name of the Cinsault wine was Last of Five. Andrew is the youngest of five siblings.
Yeah, and it's the baby of the program. It's always bottled really young and just kind of thrown into the world. And I resonate with that wine a lot in terms of stylistically. It's everybody else got a wine named after him, so why can't I name a wine after myself?
Right.
Well, we're running over a little bit, but now that makes me ask, like, where's 99 Steps? What is the background on that?
That goes back to what I was talking about, that very first vintage of making wine when no one messed with their grapes except one person that did was Steve Gleason over at Four Lanterns Vineyard, and he sold us a couple tons of Syrah from his estate property. And if you've ever been to Four Lanterns, there's kind of a lower flat area of the vineyard, and then there's this really intensely steep hill going up, and the Syrah was at the top of the hill. And it was so steep, and it was a hill that my truck could never get up the road. It always spin out, and I had to walk up the hill. And I decided to count my steps to the top one day, and it was 99. And then I started to taste the wine on the other end, and I was like, I want something to remember that first year when it was such a struggle. It was like climbing a hill in terms of just getting off the ground and getting our name established. And what came to my mind was that 99 steps to the top of that hill. You just keep climbing, just keep taking those steps, one foot in front of the other.
When you got to the top of the hill, did you put that in your notes, 99 steps?
I just mentally sorted. It was like, oh, crazy, it's 99
Locked it
steps.
in.
I remember thinking, what, it couldn't be one more and be a even 100?
No,
Well,
99 is
hey,
perfect.
Drew, I just want to say I've enjoyed every one of your wines I've tasted. Matter of fact, I think when we were in the tasting room last, there were too many of them that were sold out because everybody's liking them. But
Yeah,
um,
we didn't get a lot of we didn't get to try a lot of that was when you were up at Hawks Hill, right? So
but
um
I just want to say that I really enjoy them. I'm enjoying the event tonight, and I can see why your parents are so proud. Not just a good winemaker, but clearly a good human being. And I appreciated the time very much tonight.
Thank you, guys.
yeah,
I love the work that you guys do as a group in the good name of Paso out there, creating forum for people to discuss what's going on, just generally bringing more attention to the area. And I mean, we're doing work here, but you guys are really getting the name out, which is what allows us to keep doing what we're doing. So thank you.
as an old dude, you're an impressive young man. I can say that. And your family is equally as impressive. Nice to meet you all. And thank you, Tracie, for all your communication. We appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, guys. Hope you guys in
Thanks,
Paso
everybody.
soon.
Happy
Have a good
holidays to
holiday,
everybody.
everybody.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Let me turn this off.